Winter weather conditions make driving especially dangerous. Be alert.
There are 200,000 people down there in Spokane, many more if you include the entire Pacific Northwest. Over the past year, we have met some very special people among them, people we have featured as our neighbors. Good evening, I'm Tom McArthur, and welcome to Neighbors, a holiday tradition. We began our weekly Neighbors series 3 years ago on KREM-TV News. Every week since then, we visited somebody who makes life better, more interesting, or more beautiful here in the inland Northwest. Tonight, we're going to go back and revisit some of this year's neighbors again. Among them is Vern Phillips. Vern collects and restores old cars, this 1931 Ford Model A among them. Vern, what is it that makes this car special for you?
Well, first of all, I like the sound of the engine. Model A engines have a very special sound, and of course it's a lot of fun to drive. However, my favorite car is a Model T Ford, because that's the car that put America on wheels.
A generation ago, this crank turned the future of America. Today, it turns over the pride and joy of Vern Phillips. This car was made 70 years ago, the year before Vern was.
The Model T put America on wheels. Otherwise, we wouldn't have automobiles today if it hadn't been for this little car right here.
Turns out the car that changed the world changed Vern's life, too. Years ago, Vern decided to turn down big money in a big city and settle down in Spokane to work on cars.
I told my wife, I said, I've always wanted to do body and fender work. I'm going to learn the trade, and I'm going to start my own business, and which I did. I went to work at 60 cents, quit a real fine paying position, and went to work at 60 cents an hour as an apprentice to learn the body trade.
By and by, restoring classic cars turned out to be a sidelight to Vern's daily stock-in-trade. Vern learned how to drive in a Model T, a car that lit the way to the future in more ways than one.
Back in those days, they called it a fat man's steering wheel because someone with a large stomach could not get behind the wheel. So it was made so that it would tilt. So the tilt steering wheel is nothing new.
It existed
It's
in
been around since 1917.
While the Model T is Vern's favorite, it is not the only automobile in his collection. Perhaps the one that gets more stares than any other is his 1939 straight-eight Packard convertible. This used to be a motorhome until Vern worked his magic.
Well, I saw it. It was parked out at Pondray Lake in Bottle Bay. Been there for 20 years, and some hippies were using it for their home. I managed to buy it, and when I saw it, I decided somehow or some other this is going to become a convertible.
After 8 months of work, the motorhome became what you see here, just like what rolled off the Packard line in 1939.
I think they look a lot nicer with the top down. Oh, I enjoy the car, and I enjoy driving it. It's just a neat car to go down the road in. And it gets excellent mileage. It'll get 25 miles a gallon on the road. You see, it has overdrive, and that big straight-eight engine just loafs along when you're in the highway with it. People smile, and they enjoy this. Look, the way they wave, they honk their horns. It's fun. They enjoy the old cars, people do. It's just a Model A horn.
Yeah. Thanks for the ride, Vern. That's a beautiful machine. Vern is the first of several neighbors we will meet here tonight. The rest are waiting inside where it's warm, including a woman who paints old cars like this one. We'll meet her when Neighbors, a holiday tradition, continues.
See the Chris Craft Boat Show going on every day at Price Marine. When you get into boating in a Chris Craft, it will spoil you for anything else. Discover an American tradition at Price Marine, just off the Broadway off-ramp at North 520 Dyer Road.
For more than 10 years, Ted Salvage in beautiful downtown Hilliard has been the handyman's headquarters for the Spokane area. From our house to yours, thank you for your patronage and season's greetings. Ted Salvage, the candy store for men, 5025 North Market.
Enter the world of Barbara Streisand, Richard Dreyfuss, Steve Martin, and more on the next Entertainment Tonight. From the sexiest bachelor fathers on screen to the stars who'll keep you in stitches, we'll unwrap Hollywood's star-studded holiday films. Plus, Oscar winner Sissy Spacek shares one of her most rewarding moments. And Ava Gabor gives you a private showing of her wondrous wardrobe on the Christmas edition of Entertainment Tonight.
Friday at 7:30 on the News Leader.
Welcome back to Neighbors, a holiday tradition. Over the course of our travels this past year, we have met some very talented artists. You remember the old car we had at the beginning of this program? Well, our next neighbor painted these old cars. While she is an artist today, that is not the title she has always had. She has quite the list of professional credentials, as a matter of fact. She has a teaching certificate, a master's degree in history, and is a doctor of education. While those are impressive titles, the title she chooses to use most often today, though, is artist. It is such a simple title to describe so much. How do you begin to describe emotion captured on canvas? Emotion is only one of the things this neighbor captures on canvas. History is another.
This is Spokane. This is Riverside looking east and Howard. And the basis of this painting is a Libby photograph taken in 1909, Indiana.
Moments in time, preserved forever, through the brush of Nona Hangin. Nona began drawing horses as a little girl on this farm near Spangle. When she grew up, Nona left this farm to pursue a life as a college professor back east. 7 years ago, she came back to the life she had abandoned, the life she had always wanted to live, the life of an artist.
One lifetime is so short. And while I loved teaching, I loved the universities where I was employed, I think, always had the urge to paint and to write. That started early on, too. So I just one day just decided that the rest of my life, that's what I wanted to do. And
Today, painting pictures is only one part of Nona's life. Inviting others to visit her studio and talk of art is another, both sides appreciating the other's effort to take the time.
I would say 2 months apiece. 2 months. You spend like a month in the library, right, and then a month with a paintbrush.
Nona works from the saying, those who forget their past have no future. From history and tales of folklore, Nona gets the ideas for her art.
I tend to be very visually oriented. When somebody reads me a story, I can just see it. And the thrill of doing these historical paintings was that there was no photographer. This is pre-Kodak. So it was really a challenge, and you'd open the diary and you would read what the soldier had to say, and the scene just came before you, a cast of thousands in your mind.
Much of Nona's work chronicles the history of the Palouse country. Colonel Steptoe, Colonel Wright, and the battles their soldiers fought with the local Indians are captured forever in Nona's paintings.
It's important to me to make a statement that other people will enjoy, children and adults alike, and that they will take something from. If they can appreciate the Native American and that this was his country and we did take it, I think we need to know that. We need to know what our roots were and how this country was settled. It's important.
Well, these paintings here have been done since we had the chance to talk this summer. Tell me briefly what we're looking at here.
We're looking at paintings of automobiles from the Great Depression. Down here is a Pierce Arrow, a 1930 four-door sedan. Over here, a Cadillac Cabriolet, or a convertible coupe, with a golf club. This is a $3,000 vehicle in 1932, my favorite.
Yeah.
Here is a 1933 Oldsmobile sedan, and about $850, average middle-class vehicle for 1933. And finally, it's a delivery sedan built not on a pickup frame, but on a car chassis, and making a delivery, a light delivery, 1934, vintage.
Okay. What was the reason why you decided to paint these old classics?
Well, I think everybody in the state is excited about the centennial coming up and interested in regional history, and this is part of America's great love affair with the automobile.
Great paintings. Thanks for bringing them in to share tonight.
Thank you.
Speaking of history, you could say, I suppose, that our next neighbor carves history. He carves carousel horses, as a matter of fact. Carousels were invented in Europe as military training devices. Today, we basically use them for amusement and entertainment. Sadly, there are no carousel makers around anymore, but there is tonight's neighbor. Around the turn of the century, carousels were in their heyday. At their peak, there were more than 2,000 carousels in the United States. Now there are only about 200. Most of the horses have been burned or thrown out. The lucky ones, though, end up in the hands of Pete Conway.
Well, I've always been fooling with wood carving, and about 6 or 7 years ago, I discovered wooden carousel horses, and the person likes to carve. It's a good thing to do.
Pete has made a few animals from scratch, like this giraffe, but most of his time is spent bringing old animals back to life. This horse was put on a carousel in New York in 1910. Next week it will be good as new and on its way to a collector in Oregon.
Somewhere along the line, this horse, when it came off the merry-go-round, it had no head. The head got lost someplace, so first off, he wanted me to build a headboard.
Pete will spend up to several hundred hours on an animal sometimes to bring it back to life. The interesting thing about American horses is that they're only finished on the right side, since that's the only side most people see. In England, where cars and carousels operate the other way around, the left side gets the special treatment.
I think about the old carvers that used to make these things, and I try to do it the same way as they do. I use a mallet and a chisel. The bodies are all hollow, and when I make a horse, I put a message of some kind in there. I put a daily paper and name of my kids or whatever. You know, who knows, 100 years when the thing falls apart, they'll have something, sort of a time capsule sort of a thing.
Pete, that horse we saw you working on, where is that calling home now?
Well, I went to Walt Urey in Oregon. He's a big collector of carousel horses. He has many, many horses, so that's where it is.
Do you find most of your horses come from places other than here in the Northwest?
Oh, yes, I think so. All over the country, wherever I can find them, or whoever needs one, that's where I send them.
They find their way here. Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Pete. On the subject of animals, our next neighbor deals with animals too. She's got over 100 dogs. We'll hear her story when we return.
Sutherland's Marina, Spokane's boat center for 65 years, is proud to exclusively offer Sea Swirl boats and OMC Cobra stern drives. Compare the rest, then come see the best. Sea Swirl and OMC Cobra at Sutherland's Marina, 2015 North Division. All your friends at Peterson Sons Flowers, Gifts and Wine wish you all the best this holiday season and invite you to visit their beautifully decorated store at Riverside in Lincoln. Let Peterson Sons solve your gift-giving problems for friends and relations both near and far. They're always just a phone call away.
At Washington Pool and Spa, we can help you beat old man winter like never before. Our Zero Down Washington Water Power financing program puts a high-tech hot water spa well within your reach. Washington Pool and Spa, East 2802 30th in the Lincoln Heights shopping area.
A KREM-2 snowplow alert.
Want to find out when the snowplow will be working in your neighborhood this winter? Call 456-2666 and pick up a free snow control map available at any Spokane City post office, library, or community center.
Once you get past the wheelchair, Kevin Olson looks like any other teacher. While kids can sometimes be cruel to someone who is different, Kevin says kids actually seem to handle his disability better than some adults.
I'd much rather have little kids come up and just out and out ask me, why are you in a wheelchair, what happened, or something like that, than, you know, the whispering or just the look or something that when people aren't up front with me. And the kids are very refreshing in that respect. Catherine, Julie, I need you to sit in your chairs the right way, please. You make a heck of a roadblock if you sit like that.
Kevin began using a wheelchair 5 years ago. One night during his junior year at Washington State University, Kevin drove a girl home from a party. He had had a little too much to drink. Kevin was the only one injured when his car left the road.
If I'd hurt someone else, then it would have been much worse. But it hasn't been bad. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but things have gone well. Things are really going well for me.
After a year of physical therapy, Kevin came back to get his degree in teaching and to realize his dream of being a teacher. Now Kevin brings lessons he has learned in his life to his classroom.
Well, it depends on whether you want to be on time to recess, late. In terms of my challenges and the things that I had to, the adversities I had to go against and fight against, and still do. And that, I think, makes things very real to them, to let them realize that they have challenges too. Not the same as mine, but that everyone does.
Kevin teaches his kids that they can count on facing problems throughout their lives. If you have the right attitude, he says, you'll do okay.
I think if the attitude is right, then you can get through a lot of things, a lot of adversity. Even times like with my accident, something that you aren't counting on. I think my attitude toward it, and my general attitude and looking on the positive aspect of things helped tremendously with that. And I think if you've got that, then other things will fall into place.
Well, that was last year's class. You've got a whole new group of kids this year. How are things working out?
Just fine. I've got another great class this year, a great group of kids, and we're doing fine this year.
Now, you've added somebody to your life that wasn't there last time we talked. Could you introduce us?
Sure. This is a very important part. This is my new wife, Kathy. We got married in June.
Congratulations. Thank you. Merry Christmas to both of you.
Thank you. You too.
A marriage is certainly a statement of love, but imagine for a moment that nobody loved you, that nobody cared for you, that you didn't have a place to call home. For hundreds of animals across this country, those are the facts of life. It is a huge problem, but not too huge to do anything about. At 73 years of age, our next neighbor is tackling the problem one animal at a time.
That's all right. It's all right, Freckles. You just settle down, I'll say hello. Usually she brings me a present, a stick. She'll bring a stick or a piece of straw or anything.
Her name is Bertha Renfro, though most people call her the Dog Lady. That's a title she's had since 1971, when Bertha decided something needed to be done about all those stray dogs.
I was retired, had nothing to do but look out my window, and I'd see these packs of dogs go by. You know, that I felt as though they needed care, they needed somebody to care for them.
Bertha decided if anyone was going to care for the animals, it was going to have to be her. She put an ad in the paper setting up the Pend Oreille Humane Society, and her life has never been the same.
I didn't know at the time that it would boomerang. And so anyway, I'm stuck with maybe 132 dogs.
Bertha's dogs live in various cages, pens, and runs on her 10-acre lot. They go through 3 tons of food every month. It's a heavy burden that doesn't seem so heavy when you're among friends.
That's my friends. I call them kids.
132 kids, huh?
132 kids. I feel like the old woman in a shoe. It's not been really pleasant. It's given me a lot of satisfaction to know that I could do something for them, but it hasn't been a pleasant experience, not at all. And I would rather, if it could be somebody else, I would rather it would be somebody else, because a lot of heartache to it.
Bertha runs all of this from her life savings and donations from volunteers. From time to time, she thinks about quitting, but then who would care for the dogs? For now, the answer is Bertha.
This has kept me from becoming lonely, you know, and just sitting in a rocking chair looking out the window. It's made my life, you know, worthwhile. I felt as though I've accomplished a purpose of why I was put here. So they say there's a reason, so this evidently is my reason for being here.
We did the story this last summer. There was a little dog running around your feet as we walked into the gate. And I understand that this is the same dog.
Same dog.
What happened to him since we last talked?
Well, he found a home right after he was shown. And the people love him. He's having a different lifestyle than he had before.
Yeah.
And goes camping in the summer. He looks happy.
So this is
right now he's a little sleepy.
The same old Benson, huh? Hi there.
Yes.
And you brought another friend along with you tonight, too.
Yes, this is Marianne Tripp. Good friend.
And a friend here between you.
Yes, and this little fella is one that is to be adopted. And she had been found abandoned along with the mother and 4 brothers and sisters. So we're trying to find a home for her.
This guy's name is Buffy?
Buffy.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to give Buffy a home?
They just call the Humane Society at Springdale, and the number is 258-7465.
Okay, that's the number to call if you want to give Buffy a home.
Right there.
Up next, we'll meet a neighbor who carves his philosophy in wood and words. That story when we come back.
The staff and management of Pacific Northwest Motorhomes wishes everyone all the best this holiday season, and to their customers, Pacific Northwest Motorhomes adds a special thank you for you've made 1987 their best year ever. Happy holidays and a joyous new year from Pacific Northwest Motorhomes.
It's a half-price sale at Pay and Save.
Starting tomorrow at 9 a.m., save half on hundreds of items like Pepsodent toothpaste.
Half price.
Pay and save aspirin.
Half price.
The entire stock of selected fragrance gift sets.
Half price.
The entire stock of Christmas trim wrap and cards.
Half price.
You'll save all over the store. Pay and Save's half-price sale starts 9 a.m. tomorrow. Shop early for best selection.
It's a half-price sale at Pay and Save.
Mention the names of the world's great philosophers, and you'll probably mention the names Aristotle, Socrates, or Plato. You'll never hear the name Sadi, but his philosophy is just as valid. If the world's great philosophers are those who help us better understand the human condition, then this neighbor is among the greatest. If great men are those who work to better this generation and the next, then he is also a great man. He believes in himself because someone first believed in him. And now his life is dedicated to continuing that chain. Look at Ralph Sadi's workshop and you won't see anything much. Look inside though, and you'll discover wonderful things happen here. From a lilac root and a 2x4, junk in anyone else's mind, Ralph can make a truck for the neighbor boy. Ralph is today the kind of person he looked up to as a child. When Ralph was 4 years old, he became friends with his neighbor. He called him Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob showed me that everything in the world is useful and beautiful if you know what to use it for and know how to see it. And so it's given me now, after 4, I'm 83, so it's given me 79 years looking for beauty and things in people and kids and in the natural things. And so it's been so much fun, I want to pass it on. Too many miss it.
Uncle Bob is long since gone, but Uncle Ralph carries on. Making things and making friends is what life to Ralph is all about.
I enjoy the company of anybody from 2 years old to 100. And we enjoy each other. That's what it's all about.
Ralph shares a lot of his life with kids and others who stop by. But Ralph shares his life in another way, too, by taking it all on the road.
Then you'll come again, won't you?
Yep.
Okay, we'll make something else.
Parked next to Ralph's house is Sadi's little museum on wheels. You need only peek in the window to catch a glimpse of the marvels inside. In this museum, you can find a little bit of everything. Models of life in the Old West, nursery rhymes that come to life, and even a little bit of junk food. All of this under Ralph's poem, The Joy of Living.
I love to share with children the things that are deep within my heart, for I know the joy it brings when you get an early start. When I was small, a man I knew taught me God and beauty are everywhere. There's nothing like the joy of sharing. I tell kids, what's better than a candy bar? Half a candy bar. with a friend to share the other half with.
After 83 years, Ralph has quite a few little gems of wisdom, a wisdom that is reflected in his philosophy of life.
Enjoy it and pass it on. Not the tinsel, but the deep things, the things of beauty, the things of usefulness, the things that will last.
You've written some beautiful poetry there, Ralph. Was wondering if you might have anything that's appropriate for the Christmas season.
I wrote one a few years ago on a Christmas Eve.
Could you read it for us tonight?
Yes. A day to remember. It was Christmas Day in '62. Our home was filled with joy. A day of pleasure for grown-ups too, but mostly for a 2-year boy. We had a tree all shining bright. It was really a sight to see, but was surpassed by the glow of delight in that small heart filled with glee. He had to touch each little light, each small bauble on the tree, and his eyes would twinkle bright. He was happy as only a child can be. He loved so much the Christmas songs, and it made my heartstrings hum as he asked to hear again and again the one that he called Bum. Now he's tired and gone to bed, for he's played with many a toy. His last request as he pillowed his head was, "Pop, play Bum, the little drummer boy."
That's nice. Thank you very much for reading that for us. Neighbors is a series that continues every Tuesday night on KREM-2 News. If you know somebody like Ralph that would make a good story for us, we'd love to hear about them. Our address is Neighbors, Post Office Box 8037, Spokane, Washington, 99223. That brings us to the end of this year's holiday visit with our neighbors. Thank you for inviting us in. From our families to yours, peace and good night.
Merry Christmas!